Take a good look at this, my brothers and sisters. I'm starting with this slide. I have tried in more subtle ways to get people to look at this. It is a calendar. It goes all the way from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob to the time of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. So the first listing is of Abraham. He is opposite George Washington. Isaac is opposite John Adams. Jacob is Thomas Jefferson, so he's opposite Thomas Jefferson. And so it goes. Now, there's a further description of characteristics of the individuals a little bit later. But right now, I want you to take a real good look. I haven't been able to get people to look at this. This is really, really important. What this does is it goes all the way from George Washington in 1789 as far as being president, and he's opposite Abraham. And the listing there in the Bible is from Genesis 11:26, and it goes all the way to it actually goes all the way to Barack Obama. However, there's some descriptions that we'll get into a little bit later in regards to that. But here goes the descriptions. Now, I wanted you to look closely at the previous slide. It's a key to understanding the political, religious, economic, military, and social conditions in the world today. It is a calendar that sheds some light on events starting with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, etc., juxtaposed against George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson, etc. The calendar leads up to and includes the second coming in 1998. I haven't been able to get people to grasp this, how this timing goes. The USA is a mirror image of ancient Israel, its head of the Eighth World Empire. The 42 prophet, kings, philosopher, priests of Matthew, Luke, actually in Matthew, mirror the first 42 presidents of the USA. The USA is also head of the 7th, 8th, and last world empire, which is a renewal of Greece, Rome. Now, people who know prophecy, they know that Daniel and Revelation, the book of Daniel and Revelation, they talk about the 8 empires. Most people don't quite get that. It's there. And in Daniel, he talks about the empires basically starting with Babylonia, even Assyria, I think, may be mentioned. But certainly Babylonia. Babylonia actually starts with Babylonia because that's where King Nebuchadnezzar had the dream. It starts with Babylonia. Okay. So then comes Persia, Greece, Rome. And in Daniel, what happens is he talks about the empires. And he talks about the various characteristics of the empires. And in book of Revelation, they talk about the last 2 empires, the 7th and the 8th. And that's mentioned in Revelation 17:11. And basically, we have the number 8, or the last empire, is kind of the death. 8 being the death, or the renewal of time, of existence, of an era. Okay, to begin here, let's remember that Thomas Jefferson is the reincarnation of Jacob, also known as Israel. He's also the reincarnation of Caliph Umar. Prophet Muhammad is the reincarnation of Moses. Now, getting to the slides, the comparisons show the similar or the opposite. Similar or opposite. Some of the comparisons are listed below. Number 1, Abraham and George Washington moved away from their nations and started new nations. Washington was a warrior. Abraham fought against Chedorlaomer. Genesis 14:5. Number 3, Jacob, also known as Israel, is the father, through his offspring, of the Hebrew nation and the West. Jefferson is the father of the ideals of the USA. Franklin Pierce, number 14, became the youngest president of his time. He hastened the Civil War by signing the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. David was a young warrior, and the best in his character was the opposite of Pierce's. Number 15, Solomon was wise and had 1,000 wives, so they say. James Buchanan, the opposite, is considered one of the worst presidents because of his lack of judgment and moral courage, and the only bachelor president. Number 16, Abraham Lincoln saved the Union and is considered a moral individual. His counterpart, the one who he's opposite, Rehoboam, presided over the breakup of the Jewish state into Judah and Israel. Rehoboam was immoral. See how it goes? Number 28, Woodrow Wilson was a good man, so they said, until recently. His counterpart, Jeconiah, was a scoundrel. Actually, Woodrow Wilson might be called a scoundrel too. Number 30, Calvin Coolidge said the business of America is business. Salathiel, the counterpart, said the business of Israel was justice and righteousness. Number 39, now notice the 3 and the 9 added together equals 12, and reduces to a 3. So Jacob, of course, is another word which means James, Jimmy, Israel, and it means he who would provide service to his fellow man. So Jimmy Carter does what? He works for Habitat, an organization that provides services from man to his fellow man. Number 40, Joseph, Jesus' father, helped to prepare a channel that became the hope of humanity. The world is forever indebted to him. He went to Egypt to avoid death to his son. The counterpart, Ronald Reagan, presided over the USA, becoming the world's biggest debtor nation. Also, the national debt went from $1 trillion to $3 trillion. Reagan invaded Tiny Grenada, and bullied other small nations. He also said things that had little or no resemblance to facts. Many U.S. citizens just loved Reagan. Numbers 41 through 42. Jesus, number 41, was oppressed and escaped to Egypt to save his young life. As the Christ, number 42. Now remember, I'm not just saying that randomly. Jesus is listed as two individuals, basically, or two entities in Matthew. Jesus and Christ. They're counted differently. They're counted as part of the group of 14 individuals, and go back and check it. So, as the Christ, Jesus made a way for many, to save many lives, to tell the truth, to be of service, to heal the sick, to feed the hungry, to give man hope, to lift the oppressed, to free the captives, to comfort the weary, to encourage those who fight against evil, to lead man back to his final destination. Number 41, Bush, the counterpart to Jesus. He invaded Panama. He killed the children and women and men in his way. He murdered tens of thousands of children, women, and men in Iraq. Many U.S. citizens loved it. Jesus the oppressed, Bush the oppressor, opposites. During the time of Bill Clinton, he was number 42, the price of oil declined to about $10 to $11 per barrel. Surpluses appeared in the federal budget. The internet and dot-com bubble appeared, and some thought that the Clinton-era prosperity signaled the end of regular economic cycles. And this reminds us of Jesus feeding the multitude of 5,000 men, plus women and children with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and taking up, after everyone had eaten, 12 baskets full of fragments that remained. Matthew 14:17 through 21. And also of the 4,000 men, plus women and children, fed with 7 loaves and a few little fishes, and they took up of the broken meat that was left 7 baskets full. Matthew 15:34 through 38. Now after Jesus left the scene and after Stephen was stoned in 34 A.D., the covenant with ancient Israel ended. The covenant with ancient Israel ended. No more Israel. And the dispensation, mission, or torch was given in turn to the Christians and then to the Muslims. And after Clinton, the covenant with America ended. So the Supreme Court did what? It selected the next president, George W. Bush. Now, go back again and look at the list of 42 prophet, kings, philosopher, priests is what I call them, juxtaposed against the first 42 presidents of the United States. And remember that they are either similar or opposites. And what this does, this calendar, it goes all the way from about 1943 BC up until the time of President Obama, 2009. But actually, remember the dispensation actually ended with Bush, 42. And so, with Clinton. Bush is number 43. And so he's outside of that. He's outside of that particular cycle. Okay. Now, please pay close attention to this. This is important. Nobody else has this. Nobody else understands this. This is what tells you that we are in what? A new era. We're in a new era. What has happened since 1998? We'd already talked about the dot-coms. We talked about the economic cycles seeming to have been suspended or something. We had the appearance of Google, the corporation, starting in 1998. Later on, we had Twitter. We had Facebook. We have smartphones. We have all kinds of advances in science and technology. It's like a miracle. It's a miracle. So we're in a new age, and therefore you have all this strangeness, some of which is, I think that the climate change thing, it's all part of that. Because remember, things are not separate. We're all connected. Everything is connected. So remember that. So enjoy the post and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.